the biggest difference between my family and most other families is were no ups at all. It's only downside. There was no upside to being part of that family. These were cruel, selfish people who don't understand love, who don't have compassion or empathy. And I consider myself extremely lucky that I am not part of that family at all.
Serious revelations keep coming from the release of the Epstein files. One are 18 emails from an FBI informant based in Mexico to an NYPD detective. In one of those emails, he questions whether or not the NYPD detective had shared information about the sex trafficking trial that he was connected with in Mexico, because an American had shot the trial judge, evidently. That, and Senator Wyden is calling upon the DEA to investigate what may be drug trafficking crimes related to Epstein, not just sex trafficking. My name is Dina Dahl with the Midas Touch Network. Let's break this down. Now, as we know, there are millions of documents that were released in that last release of the Epstein files, and people are still combing through them. Well, El País, Spanish newspaper with a Mexican edition, is talking about this FBI informant email. FBI informant Ken Turner sent 18 emails to an NYPD detective. In one of these emails, he asks specifically, he says, "We've had another serious incident since an American shot the trial judge in our child sex trafficking case here." He and I both think this latest incident is tied to the fact we have reached out to your team.
Donald Trump absolutely lost it after Ana Navarro dropped a bombshell on live television by exposing who's really protecting the Jeffrey Epstein files, and Trump's White House response proved she was right. From Ana Navarro declaring on November 13th, 2025, "This is white, rich, powerful, entitled men protecting other white, rich, powerful, entitled men," after House Democrats released Epstein emails referencing Trump, to Navarro saying, "We have failed the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. We as a country, our legal system, our institutions, our leaders, we've failed those victims time and time again."
Yeah, the nickname used in my family, mostly by my two uncles, Donald and Rob, and my aunt Liz, was Honey Bunch. And they used it for everybody. I mean, at one point, I thought maybe they'd forgotten my name because they called me Honey Bunch all the time. They called my grandmother Honey Bunch. So I first heard Stormy Daniels make this reference a couple of years ago, I think, long before this trial. And it honestly sent a chill down my spine that he used it so indiscriminately with nieces and his mom and women that he's randomly hooking up with for sexual encounters. It was very disturbing, I have to say. Who on your team knows we are talking to you? Anyone assigned from NSA, CIA, or U.S. State Department? ? Please understand, people's lives here are in jeopardy. And he sent that on July 27th, 2019. As we know, Jeffrey Epstein was in New York getting charged, arrested for his sex trafficking scheme at that time in New York. And here you have this informant saying evidently an American had shot a judge in a sex trafficking.
To Trump's White House attacking Navarro, saying, "Like all TDS liberals, Ana only cares about the Epstein files because she thinks she can weaponize it against President Trump." To White House Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson, claiming the emails prove literally nothing. To Caroline Leavitt, insisting Trump kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club decades ago for being a creep.
I think the problem we're facing now, and certainly have faced in the last year, is that thanks to some deeply misguided Americans who decided to put him back into power, a corrupt, illegitimate majority in the Supreme Court who gave him an imperial presidency, and a feckless, weak Republican Party that has completely ceded its constitutional duties, Donald is not bound by anything anymore. And he's also realizing unconsciously that all of the power, all of the money he's getting from corrupt corporations and from grifting off the American people isn't enough
to fill the black hole within him. So now he's trying to do that by stealing other countries. It's quite alarming. And you're right, it has been an exhausting, demoralizing year.
Trial in Mexico, and this informant believing that somehow there was a leak in his communication with the NYPD detective. Now, of course, we don't know, can't confirm the truth of his statement. This is the problem with independent reporters, even legacy media, having to comb through these documents ourselves, because we don't have the investigative tools, the ability to actually question somebody under oath to figure out if somebody is telling the truth or not. We have to instead be reading their emails because the DOJ and the FBI did not do their jobs. But calling out these emails, because there certainly should be more attention on it here in the United States. As I said, El País already reporting on this, but I haven't seen any reporting. On August 10th, 2019, this same informant emails
to a previous White House statement calling Navarro dumb, saying, "Every time you think Ana Navarro can't get any dumber, she proves you wrong." Ana Navarro's refusal to let Trump hide from his Epstein connections triggered the most defensive White House response of 2025. We're breaking down every moment she exposed the cover-up, but first, if you want journalism that asks why powerful men are protecting Epstein's secrets instead of victims, join our membership for just $9 a month, because demanding accountability is how we get justice. Now back to how Ana Navarro destroyed Trump on live TV. Let's start with November 11th, 2025.
Specifically regards to the Peace Prize, it doesn't have to be more complicated than the fact that Barack Obama got one. And he can't handle that. But there's a more general and serious issue here. Donald is a deeply insecure man, and I refer to him often as a black hole of need, and he's constantly in search of things to fill that void. Usually it's money, but sometimes it's recognition, and sometimes it's power. But the problem for us is that there's literally nothing that he can get. There is nothing that he can steal. There is no compliment he can receive that will make him feel better about himself. So he is always in search of the next thing, whether it's more money, whether it's more power, or whether it's stealing property, territory from sovereign nations. This is
just heard about Epstein. Based upon what we have discovered here and who was involved here in Mexico, we don't believe it was suicide. When you have 5 minutes, you need to listen to what we have as evidence. So much coming out in the release of these Epstein files, so much still to come out in these Epstein files. We need somebody in law enforcement to be able to do the right things here for what seems to be survivors worldwide of Epstein's abuse, him and all of the men and connected to him, and women, anybody who was connected to this. Now, Senator Wyden, as we know, he has been just on top of this. He's been on top of the banking. Now also sending a letter to the DEA saying that they need to investigate what has come out in these files about the fact that Epstein may very well have been involved with drug trafficking, not just with...
Because this is when Democrats on the House Oversight Committee dropped a bombshell. They released thousands of Jeffrey Epstein documents. Among them, 3 emails from the disgraced sex trafficker that referenced Donald Trump. Republicans on the committee immediately accused Democrats of releasing the emails out of context to stain Trump's image. The White House claimed the emails were a hoax and that Trump had kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago for being a creep to his female employees. 2 days later, November 13th, 2025.
Deep down inside, this is weighing on him in the middle of the night, for example?
Yeah, and first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. I don't think that it's as conscious as Chris Christie seems to think, because there are so many reasons for Donald not to believe this is happening, first of all. And secondly, probably the worst thing he can feel is humiliation. So he uses a lot of weapons at his disposal, a lot of defense mechanisms to displace that humiliation, to make it unconscious so he doesn't have to feel. So we've been hearing from a lot of people in his inner circle that he's furious all the time. It's much better to feel
human trafficking or sex trafficking. He says in his letter, as you may be aware, federal records recently unsealed by the Department of Justice indicate that Epstein and members of the criminal organization were the target of a major investigation by the DEA for illicit financial activity tied to drug trafficking, according to a heavily redacted memo prepared in 2015 by the director of the DEA's Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Forces. Epstein and 14 other co-conspirators were being investigated for their involvement in illegitimate wire transfers, which were tied to illicit drug and/or prostitution activities.
Ana Navarro went on The View and destroyed Trump's entire defense. Sarah Haynes started the conversation by pointing out Epstein's incredible power over influential figures. He could pick up the phone and get world leaders to show up, Haynes said. Why did this man have so much power? It's not even about Donald Trump that I want to see these files. They absolutely have to show us what they're all hiding. And it's billionaires. There's a lot of money behind this scandal. Then Ana Navarro delivered the line that triggered Trump's White House.
The main value was to win at all costs. And that meant there could only be one winner and everybody else was a loser. Given the stakes, Donald realized fairly early on that he needed to do whatever he could to win in the family, because he had seen how horribly my father fared when he failed up to live to my
occurring in the U.S. Virgin Islands and New York City. And he goes on to say that in order for that department, that specific task force to be involved, it had to be a massive, major drug trafficking activity, that they don't investigate the lower level or minor ones. So Senator Wyden, as always, coming out in front, trying to get accountability. Interestingly, if you remember, he also sent a letter not that long ago to the director of the CIA itself. It was a very short, cryptic type letter that really just said,
Sarah, this is white, rich, powerful, entitled men protecting other white, rich, powerful, entitled men. Men who thought they could get away with anything and for decades did. The audience erupted in applause. Because Navarro had just said what everyone was thinking. The Epstein files are being hidden not because there's nothing there, but because there's too much there. And powerful men, including Trump, don't want it released. Navarro continued.
Angry that it is to feel humiliated or afraid, but Donald is and always has been a frightened little boy deep down. And I actually believe that when he goes through this process next week or in the coming days, if he does, as he should, as all of them should, because everybody else in his position has to, it might actually start breaking through that there's nothing he can do to get out of this. We saw this in New York. He wasn't arrogant. He wasn't brash. He submitted in a way that was meek. And we're going to see the same thing, but on steroids next week, I believe.
To the CIA director, by the way, I sent you a classified letter raising serious concerns. And then he sends this public letter to the CIA just saying, I sent you a classified letter, highlighting, one, he either wants the public to know that there is a serious issue he's trying to raise with the CIA, or two, perhaps even more alarming, he doesn't trust the fact that his letter might get to the CIA director. So he's calling out to the CIA director himself, heads up, if you're not getting a letter, I sent you one. They say you are where you eat, and Mosh protein bars are both delicious and nutritious, and it's all about supporting brain health.
I don't know why we're getting sucked up into a political partisan fight about this. This is about right and wrong. Then she said the line that perfectly captured the entire scandal. We have failed the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. We as a country, our legal system, our institutions, our leaders, we've failed those victims time and time again. This wasn't partisan. This wasn't about Trump versus Democrats. This was about justice for Epstein's victims. And Navarro was demanding accountability. Within 24 hours, Trump's White House attacked her.
Well, it's certainly not a very flattering portrayal of her uncle or of the Trump family in general. I mean, she essentially calls Donald Trump a sociopath, and Mary Trump is a clinical psychologist, and so she sort of digs into this family's history and their relationship with each other and essentially says, you know, the patriarch Fred Trump, who is Donald Trump's father, created this really toxic environment that made Donald Trump the way that he is. And when she talks about her uncle, she describes him, like I said, as a sociopath, as a liar, as a cheater. You know, she writes at one point in this book that the lies may become true in his mind as soon as he utters them, but they're still lies. It's just another way for him to see what he can get away with.
They were started by Maria Shriver and her son Patrick Schwarzenegger because they wanted to do something to help families suffering with Alzheimer's. Plus, they've been named as one of Oprah's favorite things. They taste delicious. They even have plant-based flavors, and their ingredients are amazing for your brain. They include ashwagandha, collagen, lion's mane, omega-3. Plus, they have something called Cognizin. It is the first and only food brand to have it. It is a premium nootropic that supplies the brain with a patented formula of citcholine. As you can see here, I am traveling, and it is great to throw some bars in my bag when I know I'm having something nutritious and good for my brain. But perhaps the best part about this bar is they donate a portion of all proceeds to gender-based brain health research through the Women's Alzheimer's Movement. And it's gender-based because 2/3 of all Alzheimer's patients are women, and they're trying to close the gap between women and men's health research. I have family members suffering from dementia. I want to eat foods now that help my brain, plus help support research.
White House Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson released an exclusive statement to Entertainment Weekly. Like all TDS Trump derangement syndrome liberals, Anna only cares about the Epstein files because she thinks she can weaponize it against President Trump. The statement claimed Navarro didn't care about Epstein during Biden's presidency, and that the recently released emails prove literally nothing. Jackson then tried to change the subject. Liberal outlets are desperately trying to use this Democrat distraction to talk about anything other than Democrats getting utterly defeated by President Trump in the shutdown fight.
Live up to my grandfather's expectations. My dad was 7.5 years older, so Donald had the benefit of his experiences. The problem, though, is not only that winning was so incredibly important in my family, but that losing was literally considered the worst thing you can do. So, for the first time in his life, Donald finds himself in a situation in which
in the future. So if you want to find ways to give back to others and fuel your body and your brain, Mosh bars are the perfect choice for you. Head to moshlife.com/mistrial to save 20% off plus free shipping on the Bestsellers Trial Pack or the new Plant-Based Trial Pack. That's 20% off plus free shipping on either the Bestsellers Trial Pack or the Plant-Based Trial Pack at moshlife.com/mistrial. Thank you, Mosh, for supporting this episode. Talk about this timing because...
And the victims still waiting for justice. Trump's White House claimed the released emails prove literally nothing. But if they prove nothing, why are they still hiding thousands of pages? Caroline Leavitt said Trump kicked Epstein out of his club. But Trump won't release the evidence, won't declassify the files, won't show the world what really happened. Because Ana Navarro was right. White, rich, powerful, entitled men protecting other white, rich, powerful, entitled men.
Not just that he's lost, but that he cannot for the life of him figure out a way to turn the loss into a win, something he's always been able to do in the past because he's perfectly happy to lie, cheat, and steal his way to a win. So because he cannot overturn the results of the election as hard as he's trying, it's making him increasingly desperate and dangerous in my view.
It could be about many things. I mean, Senator Wyden is very involved, right, in intelligence and foreign affairs. But he's also been very active in this. So interesting side note. And then, of course, we see what Trump did, right, with the cartel and pardoning. Not only did he, as we know, pardon the Honduras president who was convicted, and in his trial it came out that he partnered with the Sinaloa cartel, but also he allowed family members of the head of the Sinaloa cartel to be granted asylum and came to the United States back in May of 2025. Trump is all over these files, is so connected to Epstein in one way or another.
Share this video because Ana Navarro's courage to call out the Epstein cover-up deserves to be amplified. Subscribe because we're tracking every attempt to hide the truth from Epstein's victims. Comment below, why won't Trump release the full Epstein files? Independent journalism that demands justice for victims instead of protecting the powerful is what democracy needs. Support us, stay vigilant, and never stop asking who's protecting whom.